Alright, so today we're going to be replacing some faders that have been acting up at our church that I go to, and I just thought I'd make a video to help you guys out on it. So these are the ones we've got them marked that have been giving us some problems. And what's been happening with them is if you were to change layers over here, you would have faders that would get stuck down at the bottom and they would try to move vigorously to get back up, killing audio, which is pretty terrible and not good. So we'll replace those. Before we do it, we're going to go into a fader calibration on the system. So I'm going to power it up, show you guys how to do it. I'm pretty sure while you power it up, you hold the store button, but I'll make sure, show you how to do the fader calibration, see if that fixes anything, and we'll go ahead and replace the faders, and it should help us kind of tell us what's going on as well. So I did just hold down the store button, turn on the power, get you to the menu here. You need to make sure that you've already saved onto a flash drive everything that you're going to need to do. We'll go over here. There's a fader calibration that we will hit, and then select faders with select, press the start button. So we know for sure these have some problems, so we're going to hit the select and then select over there, and we'll let them go ahead and calibrate. So start trying, and we will see what happens. And then it says, and you can just follow all this, that way it's not a long video. And as it goes through the fader calibration test, you'll see them kind of sporadically move. I could already tell that 2 or 3 of these were nowhere near the -20, the 0, and the 10 where they were supposed to go. So we'll see what their response is after it's all said and done of what it says is good or bad. And I know back when we used to have Yamaha LS9s and M7s, it would say faders were bad all the time that weren't bad, so I don't really know if I trust what's going on here. You can see when they all went up, which that one eventually did go up, but I'm kind of worried about this guy that hasn't been giving us a problem. He's kind of stuck there too. So its conclusion, it was not happy with this guy, that one, and the other one, which most of those go with what we've found, except for the exception of this. So kind of interesting. All right, so after we are sure that you have saved onto an external flash drive, we're going to start taking out all of these little guys, and they're all the way along the back, all the way along the sides, and they are 2mm Allen wrench. We'll take all those out. And I would recommend having some magnetic dishes where you can put everything in it. You don't have to. But after we've got all those out, there are a bunch of Phillips screws, if I can even get my camera to do it. There we go. That are all underneath there. About to take all those out. And you couldn't really see these from my video before, but there's one up there, one there. Don't have to do this. There, don't have to do those. There and there. So next thing, we're going to take all of our fader caps off. So you just kind of get from the top here and pull backwards, and it'll come off. And then after we get those off, I'll show you the next thing to do. Use both hands. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to have one of these guys all the way down. You can kind of see that way that shoots over. Then we'll do that one all the way up where it shoots over. And we'll just invert these back and forth, and this should help with keeping that card in place once we get to the next step. So we're gonna go ahead and do that on all the ones that we actually have that have problems, which would be the section I just did in this section. I don't even have to take anything off these because there's nothing wrong with this. So once you've got all the screws, everything ready, this will hinge from here going up. You can take some drumsticks. You can see how much dust is in our church's one here. Quite a bit. So put it in this gap here. Let it sit up top under that little part, and then you can gaff tape it to keep it from moving. So then, if you know which ones you're gonna have to take out, we're gonna have to take out this guy, and then the 2 that are down here. So this one, kind of hard to see, especially with my camera being the way it is. But you will pull this bottom part, will come loose, the top part will come loose. And then once you have these to where they're out just a little bit, this whole guy will actually come out. Let's see if we can get it to come out here, and it's just gonna be a bunch of pins. And you can see there's a bunch of pins. And then we need to remember that the red part is at the bottom. So there's that. These are much easier. I'll try to use my right hand instead of my left hand. So you just take those, try to grab from the plastic instead of from the cable, and they will just come out. Same thing there. And you'll do that to all the ones that you need to. Try to get that plastic again. And just, since I got a video, it'll be easy to remember reds on the bottom and reds on the bottom of that too. Then we have a bunch of screws. So we'll take these screws out. You need to be very careful not to let those screws fall down on the bottom. And then these guys, if it's like the M7 stuff, yeah, they just unsnap. And then we can try to take that module out. And after you have the top screws out, you can try to get all these cables out of the track. There are more screws. There are 3 on the bottom. And if you can't really get to them, you can turn these little guys and they will come out to where you can actually get to the screws. Probably use a shorter screwdriver, be easier to get those out. Now that we've got those 3 screws out, I'm going to have my hand kind of holding here and taking my other hand and going over and getting these top ones down to where that'll just fall out of my hand. And this will show you the importance of a dust cover. It's crazy. There's a lot of dust up in these. So important to remember the orientation of how these were up here. So you can tell because the ribbon cable connectors will be over on this side. That way when you get on the other side and you mark which ones were bad, you don't accidentally desolder the incorrect ones. So then on this part, you would want to make sure that you do have it in the same orientation. So we've got our connectors would have been on this side, which means it would be there on the console. And then I've got it marked, since this is the center one, these would be the bad ones. Now for the fun part, desoldering. You definitely need to have a desoldering vacuum gun, so it'd take forever doing anything else. So we need to desolder these points, start a new clip here where it can be in macro. So we're gonna be desoldering this one and this one, and this one 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 and this one. So hopefully we will not have to desolder these and it can bend, we will see. And this point, these should just kind of pop off, and then we will try to get that fader out. So I got that one desoldered. I'm about to take all these screws out of both sides, and then we will show you how to get these. So on this part, after you get the screws off, it literally, you just have to pop it with a little bit of force out, and then you can get it to come out, and it will slide out of these tabs. Kind of hard to show you with one hand. There's that. Other side's gonna be a little bit harder. You can't really get it to come out, so typically I just bend it back to bring the faders out. So you don't want to bend it a ton, but bend it back just enough to where you can actually get the faders out. So here's the model number on the new fader. It's a VAW37400. It says dust proof fader. I think that's kind of funny on it. So here's the old one. Once you get it out, you can see there's where your solder joints were, and it just lifts out and comes out. We're about to take this guy, replace it there, and do each individual one. So once I get that back in, I'll kind of show you how to touch the solder to it to make it work. But there's the little motor. Not much for these things to work. It's kind of crazy. Definitely take this time to try to vacuum and get the dust out of all these. And then you'll want to very carefully slide these new faders in, starting with this side that has most of the soldering joint pins, and then putting them back in the back there. I'm gonna bend this back over and put the other cap back on, put all the screws back in, which will hold tension on these 3 new ones, and then we'll show you how to solder it. And this is the part we gotta be very careful. You cannot put so much solder that you let each one of these points touch each other with solder. It has to be just enough to where the pin touches the receiving portion, which would be the ring that already kind of has solder. So we're going to carefully do that with each one. And if you don't feel good with soldering, I don't know if you should do this. You can buy this entire module, by the way, but it's really expensive. And if you could just repair the ones that are messed up, it's just way cheaper. So that's the reason we're doing that for our church. But that's what we're gonna end up doing there, and I'll show you the finished product. So here's our finished one. You can tell the solder is much more metallic, just because it's newer and hasn't set and oxidized. And there's our other 2 points at the bottom. And then we will check and make sure everything works with the machine. We could check with continuity and voltage and all sorts of other stuff, but it's just such a pain to do. I'm gonna go ahead and finish these other ones and put them on. And I'm gonna go ahead and power up the console. Same thing showed you in the beginning. Hold down the store button as you turn it on doing the fader calibration on the faders that just replaced. And we're going to vacuum out the inside of that and see how it goes. And while the console is still open, we went ahead and did another fader calibration, and they all checked out good, which is great. So we'll hit apply, we'll hit exit, if you can see it, and we're back over here and test around. Well, that's always good. Not one we replaced. It seems to be behaving well now. Move that vocal 3 a little bit there. Cool. So it looks like everything's good. If you were to have found this helpful, if you could please hit like and subscribe. If you ever need any gear, just let us know. We're about to start some series on some wireless microphones with some Shure and some Sennheiser. But let us know if you need anything, and have a great day.